One day, at the start of 2008, Peter Parker woke up in his bed at Aunt May's house with no recollection of the previous day, where he sold his marriage to Mary Jane to the devil. Joe Quesada, editor-in-chief at Marvel, didn't like the fact that Mary Jane and Peter were married. He believed that the relationship interfered with storytelling possibilities and decided to undo their marriage. Mary Jane was a well-liked character, so killing her was pretty much out of the question. And divorce would have made Peter look older. So they decided on a deal with Mephisto. Following the change in an era dubbed Brand New Day, we got 7 years of dating troubles for Spider-Man, detailed by many writers and artists, but none were as prolific as Dan Slott, who wrote 125 issues out of the 221 amazing and superior Spider-Man comics that came out between Brand New Day and Secret Wars. Secret Wars provided an opportunity. For years Marvel knew that fans didn't really like the change, and decided to use Battle War to tell a story where Peter stayed married to Mary Jane, and together they had a daughter, Anna May Parker. The story was written by Adam Kubert, and of course, written by the man who wrote so many Spider-Man issues, Dan Slott. We start in the Parker's kitchen, with a wink and a nod for Marvel that, in a perfect world, this was how it was always meant to be. Peter works on his web shooters and MJ tells him that she needs him more at the house to help with the baby. Peter tries to deflect but agrees, telling her that there seem to be way more troublemakers in the streets. Not just his rhinos and shockers, but also Moon Knight's and Daredevil's goons. And he can't let them terrorize New York, even if it takes time away from family. Mary Jane doesn't agree, but she understands, and he goes to sell his pictures at the Daily Bugle. But before he can sell his pictures of Spider-Man fighting everyone else's supervillains, he is told that they won't print them. Heroes seem to go missing. Those without powers are straight up killed, and those with powers are simply gone, and they don't want to cause citywide panic. So Peter changes into Spider-Man and goes to the Avengers mansion, where he finds the Avengers and the New Warriors discussing the current situation. Captain America states that in addition to the many missing heroes, a lot of villains have also disappeared, and that all of the X-Men are gone. Their main suspect is Augustus Roman, the CEO of a company that researches superhuman abilities. They decide to attack him at full force before any more heroes go missing. Spider-Man prepares to join them, but hears that all of the villains have escaped from the superhuman jail, Rikers Island. He leaves the heroes and rushes home, only to find Venom holding his wife and child. For the first time in a long time, he feels such intense fear and rage. How dare Venom threaten his family in his own house? Peter lunges forward with all of his might and sucker punches Venom as hard as he can. Mary Jane grabs little Anna and runs out of the building, desperate to keep her daughter safe. Remembering that Venom is vulnerable to noise and fire, she spots a fire truck heading to a burning building and quickly climbs aboard. Meanwhile, the heroes face Augustus, who has taken on the new mantle of Regent, possessing the powers of many heroes and all of the X-Men. He deflects Captain America's shield, withstands Quasar's onslaught, and beats the Hulk, but our heroes refuse to give up. Mary Jane arrives at the burning building and Venom follows. She quickly turns on the siren, knowing it won't be enough to stop the monster, but still, she hopes it will give Peter an opportunity to subdue him. Spider-Man fights Venom relentlessly, forcing him into the building. Exhausted, Peter pours every ounce of strength into the battle. The smoke and heat sap his energy away, but he can't let Venom escape. Mary Jane informs Spider-Man that they are alone in the building. Peter pauses, considering what he must do. He begins breaking apart the supporting column, while Venom screams in protest. "It isn't fair! You don't fight like this! Spider-Man never kills!" But this time, Eddie has gone too far, dragging Peter along with him. Spider-Man collapses the burning building, escaping and leaving Venom behind to die. Outside, Peter and Mary Jane look up at Regent's tower. The Avengers are gone, the Age of Heroes has ended, and while it may have looked like Spider-Man standing there, it was just Peter Parker dressed in a funny costume. Several years later, Peter is having a nightmare about the one person he intentionally killed. His spider sense alerts him and he wakes up. Running to his daughter's room, he finds her curled up, asleep on the ceiling. He wakes her up and checks her inhibitor collar, only to see it's fried. Annie is scared. She didn't want to hang her dad and she knows the bracelet is important. Peter calms her down, promises that everything is going to be okay, and reminds her that she has a responsibility to not use her powers. You see, in this new world, all superpowered individuals are taken by the government, either to serve it or as test subjects to empower Regent. For example, on his way to work, Peter comes across D-Man, a D-class hero protesting the current regime. Peter takes pictures while contemplating if he should help the poor guy, who is taken in by Shocker, Rhino, and Boomerang. Peter arrives at the Daily Bugle to collect his payment for the photos he took. But things have changed. He is no longer paid to see his work published. Instead, he is paid to keep them out of sight, because under Regent's rule, no pro-superhero photos are allowed to be printed. He overhears a reporter mention that soldiers are heading to a school, Annie's school. Peter swore to keep his identity a secret, but he needed to protect Annie, and if she's in danger, none of that matters. Pulling his hoodie tight around his face, he takes off, running through the city, leaping onto buses and climbing walls. He arrives at the school, but it isn't Annie using powers. It's her classmates, the Power Pack, who are fighting Rhino, Boomerang, and the Beetle. Realizing the kids are in over their heads, Peter decides to jump in and help. He's already exposed himself by showing that Spider-Man is back, so he beats the villains and shouts for the kids to run and get to safety. The villains report back to Regent that Spider-Man is back. He decides that it's too important to live in the hands of any soldier and gives the task of capturing Spider-Man to his Sinister Six. At home, Peter argues with Mary Jane. He thinks they should run, but she explains that it will only attract more attention and that it's better to stay. She pulls out a suitcase and reveals the classic black suit inside. She continues and says that he can't go around announcing to the world that he's back. He needs to be stealthy. This moment is so strong. If you didn't read Spider-Man's marriage era, the reason Spidey stopped wearing the black suit was because Venom threatened Mary Jane, and his costume scared her. Now when she pulls it out, Annie is also scared, as Venom had also attacked her when she was young. So the story builds on the idea that both his wife and child are scared of this costume, and that Peter doesn't want to go back to being Spider-Man, and it emphasizes how high the stakes are and that they need to take risks. He starts his return as Spider-Man by visiting a man he hasn't seen since Regent took over, Phineas Mason, better known to us as the Tinkerer. At the time, he bought inhibitor chips from him to hide Annie's powers, but now he needs more for himself. The Tinkerer plays along while alerting the Sinister Six. Dr. Octopus arrives alone, and we find out he replaced all of his limbs with robotic tentacles. Peter can't take risks, so he beats Ock swiftly, tearing him apart limb from limb. Literally, he grabs some chips and runs away. In the background, we watch Sandman, who reports back to the resistance of this domain, S.H.I.E.L.D. Kraven figures out that the reason Spider-Man was at the school is that he is a father. So the next day, every parent with a child in the school has to come to be scanned, to find out any mutations. That, of course, includes the Parkers, who go through the detectors and pass. The bracelets Peter built worked. Moments later, the alarms go off because another child, a mutant who just gained his powers, was detected. Peter can't stand to see a child separated from their parents, so he tells MJ to get to cover and changes into Spider-Man. The Sinister Six converge on the child. Peter leaps in, webbing the Vulture and evading the Shocker. But as he wrestles with Kraven, MJ and Danny are grabbed by two Regent officers and are taken to a black hole. Spider-Man beats what's left of the Six, shouting for them to let him know what they did with his family. Sandman stops him and informs him that they are with S.H.I.E.L.D. Peter doesn't believe him. Sandman reasons that since he has powers, how could he work for Regent? Spider-Man understands, but it's too late. For the first time in a while, Regent left his tower to handle matters by himself. He grabs Sandman and Spider-Man telepathically and knocks them out. They are taken to his tower, where Peter catches a glimpse of the now dissected D-Man. Regent reads their minds, discovering Spider-Man's secret identity and the location of S.H.I.E.L.D. Regent takes them to a hole filled with red tubes containing dead heroes, using them as superpower batteries that he transfers to himself. He places Sandman and Spider-Man in tubes of their own, but not before explaining his motives. He predicts that a war is coming, one in which he'll have to fight Doom. To prepare, he's collected superpowers, but he knows that Doom's strength alone is too much to overcome, and hopes that by taking the spider sense for himself, he could predict Doom's actions and gain an advantage. At S.H.I.E.L.D.'s base, MJ sends Annie to play with the power pack while she and Hawkeye talk. She reveals that Peter developed a power inhibitor that actually works. Hawkeye seizes the opportunity and takes the bracelet to his scientist, who creates an arrow that will nullify Regent's powers. Alarms go off across the base as Regent's soldiers burst in. Annie enters the battle, using her small stature and the surprise of fighting a child to incapacitate the villains. The Spot, who works for S.H.I.E.L.D., opens a portal, allowing many of the rebels to escape. He thinks that he's done, but he feels another one opening up. The Sandman had kept a hole inside him that leads back to the base, signaling with the last of his strength that he opened a hole at Regent's tower. The rebels step through, followed by MJ and Annie. Regent quickly overpowers the rebels, laughing at Hawkeye, claiming they are the scraps that are left after all the heroes are gone. In a last-ditch attempt, Hawkeye fires the special arrow at Regent's back, but Regent uses his new spider sense to catch and snap the arrow in half. MJ and Annie start disconnecting the tubes. Regent quickly turns his attention to them. They are destroying his entire plan. But before he can reach them, Peter manages to break free with the power of familial love and punches Regent through a wall and into the streets. Regent starts to beat Spider-Man. He understands that he can kill him now because Spidey is not the only one with a spider sense. But Annie descends on him, punching him in the neck and disabling his powers with the arrow he snapped moments before. The Parkers defeat Regent together, but he fakes being knocked out and grabs Annie. Peter tries to bargain with Regent, offering to give himself up if he lets Annie go, as he snaps a sharp piece off of Mary Jane's suit and steps forward. Spider-Man may have many powers, but his biggest one might be his sense of humor. He tells Regent to give Annie a quarter every week in allowance after he's gone. Why only a quarter? Because Spider-Man only pays in spider cents. Regent laughs, giving Peter an opening to do what needs to be done. In his own words, there's nothing I wouldn't do for her. But he can't betray himself, and instead he punches Regent unconscious because he can't kill again. And Regent is taken in by S.H.I.E.L.D. before the police can arrive and stop them. The story ends with the Parkers eating pancakes at the dinner table, a moment of peace after all of the chaos. Dan Slott wrote a lot of Spider-Man stories along the years. After those 125 issues, he continued to write Spider-Man in at least 45 issues on Amazing Spider-Man alone. And this one might be my favorite of his. For a writer who is known for keeping Mary Jane and Peter apart, he writes them so well together. The series delivers the story Spider-Man readers have been waiting for years, resulting in a huge success. And it's not just me saying that. The story was so successful that it continues in its own universe, following Battleworld in a comic book series that ran for 2 years titled Amazing Spider-Man Renew Your Vows. Before I go over to the nitpicking section, let's see where we are on the map. The Regency, the A domain and the one with probably the worst name, is located here, not close to any domain we visited. Okay, nitpicking time in chronological order. In the last page of the first issue, we see the Vulture stealing a purse, but later we are shown that the Vulture looks drastically different. If someone stole the Vulture's old suit, he would likely kill them because he despises copycats. And if he sold the suit, it raises the question, why would he sell it? As a top soldier of Regent, he is probably paid well enough to not resort to selling his old suit to petty purse snatchers. Why does the Daily Bugle pay Parker to not publish his photos? If the censorship under Regent is so extreme, it would make more sense for him to send a couple of goons to rough Peter up and ensure he learns his lesson. That way he would stop altogether without the need for repeat ash money. In the Red Tube's room, we see many dead superheroes suspended in fluid. Among them is Steve Rogers with his shield. As far as I know, adamantium/vibranium isn't exactly common here. Take the shield and use it. I get that the shield is meant to make his silhouette recognizable for the readers, but Captain America has a distinct enough costume. We don't need the shield to identify him. Isn't this recognizable enough? At the start of the video, I said that everyone with superpowers was either experimented on or serves the government. That's technically wrong, because Sandman states that no one with superpowers works with Regent. However, half of the Sinister Six have powers. The Hobgoblin has super strength, speed and stamina. The Vulture seems to be a modified human with a real beak and talons, and Kraven was enhanced by Calypso to be inhumanly strong and agile. So either they don't count for some reason, or he tried the worst excuse to tell Spider-Man he isn't with Regent. My last nitpick is really inconsequential. But why is Regent naked? When Annie disables his powers, he reverts to his human form and ends up in his underwear. First of all, I guess this means he generates that white mechanical skin over his clothing as part of his powers. And second, why wouldn't he wear something like Iron Man's armor? Aside from being a Baron, he owns an entire superhero company and employs Dr. Octopus, who could probably make him a suit. Plus, he claims that every power he uses has a high but limited number of uses. Wouldn't it make sense to wear armor to ensure he uses the least amount of powers necessary? I hope you enjoyed this video and all the nitpicking that came with it. Could you guess by now that I mostly read Spider-Man? Anyways, keep reading comics and I will see you here again next time.